I know everyone's sick of hearing that in all their
Done.
virtual
I
meetings.
am recording the session now. So now, yes, there's no more evidence of all the things I missed speaking at the beginning.
No
Thanks, Carol.
problem.
Yep, handing it over
So,
to you.
hi everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see everything? Yes, thumbs up. Yes. Okay. I love showing this slide just because they managed to, it's kind of grainy, but this is me at Tableau Conference Europe last year, and they got a very good picture of me. And I always say they should give me royalties for it. But for those of you who do not know me, I'm Caroline Yam, and I lead the user group program from Tableau. And I'm really excited to be here. As you can tell, I'm from Australia. I live in Sydney, based in Sydney. So as I was saying before, I feel very privileged to be able to dial into New Zealand because I never get to do that in person. So one perk of being virtual. Reason for me being here today is I have a special announcement, and that is that we are actually looking and recruiting for Tableau user group leaders for Christchurch and Wellington, two of one of the most important user groups in New Zealand. And as you can see here, we've got a whole fun cohort of our data fam there. Alex is on the call. Fun fact, is actually in this photo. We found him earlier. He's very, very tall. Not sure if you guys can see him, but he's right there. And yes, we are having that much fun talking about Tableau. And so if you want to be part of this amazing group and join this amazing data fam, please shoot me an email at cm@tableau.com. It's a pretty easy to remember email. Reasons why I think you should join, not only because it's fun, you get to connect with other Tableau users, you get to share stories, tips, grow your network, and it's a really great fun, I guess, side project for you to do as well. I will say it does take time. It is a commitment, but if if you can do it like a few times, I find that it kind of has its own rhythm. And I know Alex can always share some really, and Tabitha can share some really fun tips along the way. Again, I would say that if you have any questions about it, you can also shoot me an email. But we're really just looking for people that love Tableau, like to use Tableau to lead the user group and grow the community there. Previously, it was Jeff at Christchurch, and then we've also got Paul, who's in Wellington. Paul, if you want to raise your hand right there. Hello. Yeah, there we go. And then Alex and Tabitha are over in Auckland. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so looking for leaders pretty much. And again, it is really, really fun. And please send me an email if you're interested at all, if you just like to talk about it a little bit. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Caroline. Yes. So if you want to, just send an email to her. And yeah, it is quite fun to do the Tableau user group. So yeah, thanks, Caroline. So handing over to Tom now. Tom comes from homes.co.nz. He's head of commercial and chief data scientist there. And yeah, just handing over to you. Please share your screen if you can. And yeah.
So we can see the screen okay?
Yep.
Great. 1 second. All right, thanks everyone for having me. I'm Tom Lintern and I head up our data and insights team at homes.co.nz, and I'm going to touch a little bit on how we're using Tableau to share some of our property insights with Kiwis. So firstly, we'll introduce homes.co.nz. I hope some of you have used the website, and those that have will appreciate our aim to be the home of free property information. So the key difference about our website to others is we have information on every home in the country, so not just those that are for sale. We have a whole bunch of data around property features. Is it a 3-bedroom? Is it a house or an apartment? Is it, what is the size? But there's also interesting information around sales histories and trends, and then a bunch of great tools and features on the website for our homeowners to use. And building a great website has allowed us to create a really great user base. So we now have about 850,000 website visitors each month, viewing 20 million odd pages in a month, which is really great. And the reason I put this slide up is I just want to highlight that I think I see homes as the shop front for property insights, but there is so much more deeper insights and information in the data that we have that there's a challenge for us to try and communicate that with as many Kiwis as possible, and that's where Tableau comes in. So today, I'm just going to talk through a couple of brief use cases. So the first one is how we're using Tableau to enable storytelling at scale, how we're using it to prototype new data features. And I'll give an example of how we're using Tableau internally to help with some of our decision making. And I'll touch on a few challenges that we've faced along the way. And I'd appreciate getting everyone else in the room's expertise of maybe how they've approached some of these problems. So the first case is, like Tabitha mentioned, is our monthly newsletter. So this is the core use case that we have internally for Tableau. So what we do at homes is me and my team generate a core piece of content that we use as a foundation for a lot of our media activity. So this is a property report where we'll include some things that are table stakes. What is the market trends around the country? But then we also like to dig a bit deeper into a particular issue or a particular problem or something interesting and try and bring it to life. So we then share this content with in our user emails, which is now 180,000 and growing, and share across a bunch of other channels. So some of the examples that we've done here include where are New Zealand's most tightly held areas, or where is the most expensive suburbs, where are the best opportunities for first home buyers. And how we approach this is we have a brainstorming session. We think, hey, that could be interesting or that could be topical. But very rarely is the piece of content we write the same as what our hypothesis is. And that's because we like to anchor the story that we're trying to tell around a piece of data. And, you know, we've got to let the data do the talking. And that's where Tableau is really great for us. We can easily drag and drop data into Tableau and start exploring. So, well, is the key insight prices going up? Great, everyone's talking about that. But if we dig into different price brackets within a market, for instance, we might be able to see different trends. So as first home buyer price points changing different than others. And that's where Tableau allows us to do some really cool things pretty quickly. And then also, you know, use the presentation tools in Tableau to kind of bring it to life and make it easy to consume. So for those that are interested, we host all of these on our blog page. You can take a look and browse through some of the stories that we've done. And here's another, it's a bit of a fun one, but once again, we use Tableau to actually bring this to life, both in from a visual point of view, but also in terms of figuring out which streets we want to focus. So this was a fun thing we did at Halloween. So drilling into particular scary streets, if you will, and saying what's happening from a price perspective. So in this case, this must be something happening in the Auckland market if Elm Street has decreased in value which will be a surprise to many, but it's all just a bit of tongue in cheek, this one, but it's another use of Tableau that we've done. So the next use case I wanted to share is how we're using Tableau to help build proof of concepts. So the idea here was providing something that we can put in front of users to test potential website features, or potentially assess whether there are commercial opportunities to pursue. So I'll give an example that we did for trying to dig into suburb trends with the view of assessing whether these would be helpful for real estate agents when talking to potential vendors. So this is a landing page we created. So obviously we're talking to our customers. We want to look slick and professional. We provide a bunch of suburb trends. In this case, this is in Rotorua, Fairy Springs. We can see what the price is doing. We've broken it up into different cohorts, provided a summary of what is sold recently or what is currently for sale. And then the ability to dig into different suburbs as you need. So now we're Sunnybrook and Rotorua, and it's a similar story. So there's some interesting insights that pop out just here, right? That there's such a big difference between 5 bedrooms and smaller properties. Is that and a vendor potentially has a 5-bedroom house, the real estate agent may be able to communicate that they could expect some really top dollars for their property. And the way we did this is generated this in Tableau and actually just hosting this in Tableau public and embedding that code into the landing page. So this was fantastic at building out this proof of concept. One of the challenges we did face with this was trying, and we haven't solved this to be fair, is role-based authentication. So ideally we could create a dashboard and allow certain users to view it. So the use case here being making it available only to registered real estate agent subscribers on our website. We could obviously build that functionality around it, but at a proof of concept level, ideally we want to make that as quick as possible. The next example is how we are using Tableau to do some internal reporting and monitoring of performance within our ad operations team. So this is a great way to bring some of our key KPIs to life and allow us to continuously monitor how we're going and where we should direct effort and what's working well. So once again, we're using the model of just creating this in Tableau and sharing it to Tableau public and then distributing it to a few team members. It's a pretty small number of stakeholders in this case. So this does need manual data updates, but that hasn't been a problem at all within our team at the moment. But as the use cases become greater and greater, obviously automating everything is a key challenge that we need to be aware of. So in summary, we don't have a wide number of use cases for Tableau at homes, and we have a very small team that is trying to look at this data and bring it to life. But what we have found in the use cases that we have, that we do have, is that Tableau, it's no surprise, it absolutely excels in areas of its traditional strength. So building a hypothesis and then validating that with the data and then iterating that hypothesis is Tableau's been great. the quick prototyping of different insights and bringing it to life. And then also when we do bring it to life, doing it in a beautiful way that we can package up and make it on brand and share it with a wide number of users, of non-technical end consumers, if you will. So to the public in this case. Saying that, we have found a few challenges, and I'm particularly keen to raise these to hear how others may have tackled this. Is one of them was around when we have these insights built into our monthly newsletters. We've experimented with interactive visits within that, and obviously that has its challenges of sharing that content to a very, very broad set of consumers with a number of different devices and device sizes, and making that experience as seamless as possible. It had its difficulties. And the second challenge that I touched upon is the controlling the access. It's just some roles-based authentication. It was a barrier to some of the work we were doing there. And then the last challenge, which isn't a Tableau specific thing, but I'm sure everyone data-minded here would appreciate, is just the number of data integrations we need to manage. So most of the use cases I've described here are querying our databases within Tableau and building extracts and approaching it like that. But now we're exploring integrating our Google Analytics data, or we have other platforms that we use, and there's always something else. And so keeping on top of all of that is an ongoing battle that we're facing. So that's all from me. It was a pretty brief overview of some of the stuff we're doing with Tableau at Homes, and I guess now I'll welcome any questions.
Cool. If you have any questions, just drop them into the Q&A box. I do have a question for you, Tom. What was the biggest challenge in putting all the data together? Because you mentioned that you have the challenge of putting several connections and stuff like that. What was the biggest piece of work that you guys had to put together to get to the insights you provide?
Well, I think this is a testament to Tableau, right? I don't think that getting the data together was the challenge. The ongoing challenge is knowing what questions to ask of the data. So I'm reasonably lucky that all of our data is essentially stress tested in the public domain. So it's the data that you see on a property website. So if there's big issues with it, it's get pointed out pretty quickly by our users. So then that end user is relatively cleansed and easy to consume, and then it's just a case of kind of querying that in Tableau. But it's, having all that data sitting there isn't any good unless you can kind of know and dig into the insight, dig into it in different ways. So that's always the challenge, of trying to figure out what questions to ask of your data.
Yeah, cool, makes sense. I have another one here. So do you monitor how much your dashboards are used, or whether your newsletters are more read, or the data-driven newsletters are more well received than the non-data-driven ones? Do you have any stats around that?
That is a very good question. I don't have the comparative stats, but I know that our monthly property update is consistently our most read piece of content. And so there's an element of people seeing what's trends are happening in the property market, sure, but I like to think that our regular user likes some of the other insights that we provide. So it's definitely a top performer.
Yeah, cool. And we have a last one. I think it's Mikhail. He's asking on the chat. Did I understand correctly that you use Tableau Public to make operational data available to your team members. Is the data then available publicly? Is it available to everybody? And then I would add to it, if it is, where can we find it?
No, unless I'm mistaken. So we're only kind of doing this relatively recently, but so firstly, yes, we do share these reports internally with team members, but then on the Tableau public profile, we can make this information hidden. You can still access it with a direct URL. So, you know, that direct URL isn't shared beyond our team members. But then saying that, we are aware of what data, and we would make sure that there's nothing commercially sensitive there or anything like that.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, no, we do have, I'm not sure how up to date it is, but my Tableau public profile has had a bunch of insights that we've done over the years that, and different visitors that you can go in and have a look at. I haven't done too much in it of late, but there's stuff there.
Yeah, cool. So is your Tableau public profile just your name, just Tom Lintern, or is it a different one? You can drop it on the chat if you want people to visit.
I'll drop it in the chat
Cool.
as the talks go on.
Sure. I'm not sure anyone else has any other questions. We haven't received anyone else from the Q&A. So I think that would be this one. That would be it for this one. If you guys have any further questions, you can always drop it on the Q&A box, and then we can ask Tom later. If he's available, he can reply directly to whoever asked them. So cool. Thank you very much for joining, Tom.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity. Cheers.
Yeah, cool. Quite interesting. Thank you. So yeah, now we're gonna move on to Diego. So Diego, he's a data and insights manager at Sharesies. So I'm gonna pass it on to him. And then again, if you have questions, put it on the Q&A while you have them. And then again, we ask all of them. So Diego, welcome. It's your time now.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Nice. No echo? Oh, perfect.
No echo.
Cool. So
good,
yeah, just me. I'll stay here so I can look at everyone who's at the office here in Wellington. So let me start sharing my screen as well. My microphone can be a little bit moody sometimes, so please just let me know in case it starts making any weird noise or anything. Cool. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So talk a little bit about myself. So my name is Diego. Hi, everyone here. I work for Sharesies. As Tabata said, I'm a data insights manager over there. A little bit about me. I have a background in statistics and computer science. I used to work for Pickpock before, which is a mobile game development company here in Wellington as well. I'm originally from Brazil. Moved to New Zealand 6-7 years ago. I really like New Zealand. I'm not going back to Brazil anytime soon. And I'm a huge fan of basketball. So a little bit, so I want to talk a little bit about this journey of working at Pickpock. We used to have Tableau over there as well. And then moving to Sharesies, and how we used Tableau at Sharesies and how different those two environments were, and how Tableau was approached in those two places. So this is the current Pickpock team. I think I'm not in that picture, but in terms of size of company, Pickpock is, I think right now they have around 170 people working there. At the time when I joined, It was, I think, 120 of us. And so I joined PickPock as a game analytics developer. And so the team, the analytics team at PickPock went through a really interesting journey. So the person who was the first analytics person at PickPock, he was a technical designer, whatever that is. And he was just a very curious person. And at some point he started playing with data, gathering some data that was available publicly and creating reports. And at some point, one of the owners, he saw a lot of value on that and just made him a full-time data analyst. And from there, he started creating this whole analytics infrastructure. At some point, they got Tableau. So lots of different use cases at PickPock, but as I put here in my presentation, the main stakeholders were, let me just see if I can move this, sorry. So the main stakeholders were product managers, so the people who were responsible for designing the games, running the games after they were published, monetizing the games. So pretty much the person who was overviewing the whole game function. The marketing team, so there was a lot of user acquisition going on at PickPock. So our role as the analytics team was to pretty much calculate lifetime value for each gamer and help the marketing team to target their user acquisition and know how much money they could spend on user acquisition based on the profile of the gamer. And there was a lot of automation going on as well for the finance team. So pretty much just handling data coming from in different formats and putting that in a database. And there was a Tableau on the top of that, creating reports. A little bit about the infrastructure at PickPock. So at the time, we were using Amazon Mobile Analytics to generate all those events, which now they rebranded and the name now, it's called Pinpoint. Pretty much what happens is that you have a piece of code within the game, and that piece of code is triggering a bunch of events and sending to an S3 storage. So next one is the S3 storage. So we had S3 receiving all those events, and then those events would be moved across to Redshift. And then we had another database, which was a Postgres database, where we had a bunch of scrapers collecting data available online and putting on that Postgres database. All those, both the Redshift and the Postgres databases, they were designed by us, the analytics teams, for analytics purposes. And then we had Redis and Celery managing the scrapers, and we had Tableau Server. So the reason why I'm going through this whole thing is just to paint this picture that there was a very robust infrastructure at PickPock. And if I move to the next slide, so our responsibility as the analytics team was pretty much leveraging, working with the whole infrastructure, and the maintenance was handled by other teams. So going across the responsibilities listed here. So we had data scrapers, as I mentioned. So we as data team, analytics team, we were responsible for all the Python code that was going across different websites and APIs and gathering that data and putting in a database. Once that data was loaded, there was the whole data manipulation work that was also handled using Python most of the time. We had all those Tableau reports used by the stakeholders I mentioned earlier. Most of the work was to create reports for the product managers. Trying to think about a simple example. So there would be a game that was just released. And one interesting report that every game has is called a funnel report, which shows you the funnel, the progress of each gamer, not each one, but like as a whole, the progress through different levels. Let's say that this game has different levels. And one quick, easy insight would be, let's say that from level 3 to level 4, you see a big drop in users. So a lot of gamers, they stop playing on level 3. And then the product managers, they're gonna go and try to address that, try to understand, okay, is it too difficult? Is it too easy? Is there a bug in there? So that's a very basic use case for what we're producing. And we're responsible for managing the communication with stakeholders. Do we need a meeting? Do we need to just catch up with them once a month? And making that communication clear, using the reports to communicate in a proper manner with whoever was using those reports. And then again, all the responsibilities that were not handled by us, but so implementing the code that was triggering the events from the app, we didn't have to worry about that. The data ingestion into S3, we didn't have to worry about that. Moving data from S3 to Redshift, all handled by infrastructure. Handling the servers itself, so the Postgres server and the Tableau server, and any other data set that we were holding internally. We didn't have to take care of those servers. Redis and Celery, another piece of infrastructure that we didn't have to do anything about it. So pretty much all we had to do was have those Python scripts and ready and doing their work. And the infrastructure would make sure that those scripts were being triggered properly. And then, so I worked for, I think, approximately 3 years at PicPoc. And then I moved to work with Sharesies. So this is the Sharesies team at the time when I joined them. We were about 30 of us. Very different environment, but I think the purpose of the analytics team, which at Shares they call data and insights, was quite similar. So dealing with internal stakeholders and helping them with decision making and all of that. And they didn't have like analytics or data team in there, so it would be something fresh. And for me, there was a really interesting opportunity to just take all that knowledge, all those learnings from working at PicPoc in an environment that was already running when I joined, and just try to create something that I could shape it myself. And so just going through kind of the same topics that I discussed about PicPoc. So the main stakeholders at Sharesies when I joined were the product team and the marketing team. And the analytics infrastructure when I joined was just Google Analytics. And I'm not a huge fan of Google Analytics. That's why the sad face in there. And also it was not like, it was implemented when Sharesies started and never maintained. So of course the platform changed quite a lot over the time, and those things were not added to the tracking or whatever was going on in Google Analytics, and reports that were obsolete. So it was a very messy place to get your data from. And so at the time when I joined, I had to go after the development team, annoyed them a lot. They would get a data dump from the production database, and I would load that into my local machine and do whatever I had to do using R or Python on my local machine, produce reports, generate, let's say, a PDF, and send that the PDF or take a screenshot of whatever I produced. So it was very, very manual, very ad hoc environment. And then with time, I convinced them to get a Tableau server because that would facilitate communication and producing reports a lot. And also managed to have access to a replica of the production database. So instead of having to always bother someone from the development team to get me a data dump from the production environment, and that would be like just a snapshot, I managed to get the infrastructure team to create this read-only replica that was always updated with the most recent data. And again, making the comparison in terms of responsibilities, the department was pretty much new in there. There was not a very well-defined expectation. So in terms of analytics team, which was me, responsibility was pretty much just do anything that was required. Again, the main stakeholders were product and marketing, but there's always a request from the finance team, or we have to deal a lot with media. So we're always trying to find cool, interesting stats that we can share with the media. So very diverse. And yeah, the data sets that we work with is it can be an Excel file, it can be an API that is public, it can be our own database, it can be stuff from Google Analytics. And in terms of infrastructure and the development team, so their responsibility is to maintain the Tableau server, which because the difference is that at Sharesies, we are still creating a product. At PickPock, it was a very short life cycle. So you would create a game, the game would monetize for a few months, and then you move on to the next game. But it was already like a very well-defined life cycle. And again, at Sharesies, we were still building the platform. So the data is there, the role of the analytics team is just to help building a better product. And the focus of the infrastructure team is building that product, not necessarily building infrastructure to get information or for analytics. So we have a Tableau server, but it took a lot of time to get the attention from the infrastructure team to get that done. The same for the read-only replica, which we now have access to. They make sure I'm not creating any security breach. Of course, Sharesies is very careful with the data we handle. We're talking about people's money and also people's privacy. And we do spend a lot of time talking about what we could do in the future, which is exciting. But yeah, it's just really hard. There's lots of priorities, not enough resources. So it's hard to actually get to the stage where you can start doing all that cool work. A little bit about Sharesies itself as a company. So Sharesies has a very strong purpose and vision, and everything we do is around that, which is awesome. And being part of that team, it makes you feel like you're having an impact in New Zealand as a whole. So it's very cool. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. So their idea is that everyone deserves a equal opportunity to grow their wealth. And our vision is to give someone with $5 the same investment opportunities as someone with 500,000. And I think that's, for me, that's what is the most powerful thing that we're trying to provide. So to create this financially empowered generation, we're super big in education and making sure that for investors, they are learning, they know what they're doing, and they're not just playing with money. A little bit about the platform. So we provide 24/7 access to buy and sell and track investments. We don't have an app, so it's a website, but it works like an app if you're using your device. We have very low brokerage fees when buying shares in companies. I think what Sharesies made that was revolutionary was to, I don't know if it's in there, but just you can start trading with 1 cent. Historically, you would need, I don't know, a minimum of a certain amount of money to start trading an ETF, which is an exchange-traded fund. And yeah, with shares, you can just start with as little as you want. You can transfer, if you hold shares yourself, you can transfer into Sharesies and manage through the platform. You can trade live when the New Zealand market is open. We have lots of investment options at the platform. You have New Zealand companies, you have US companies, you have those funds, and you have access to the US companies and ETFs. And you have a fantastic online customer support. So it's funny, when we started, a lot of people would, so we don't have an automated response system when you message us. And lots of times people would talk with us thinking that they were talking with a robot or a machine. So they would be like trying to say things to get us confused, and then they will realize that is an actual person and they'll be happy about it. So back to the data and insights department at Sharesies. So again, when I joined, it was something brand new. And what they came up with was all those needs, like, okay, because for me, I needed to have a better understanding of, okay, what are your expectations? What do you want from the department? And those were few of the ideas that they had. So I think it's pretty common across lots of business. But they complained that, oh, we have just data across many different platforms. It would be really nice if we have a single place where we can go and just access consistent and easy to understand data. They wanted that place to be, they want access to real-time dashboards and real-time data, because again, if you just have a data dump, a snapshot of a database, and you do an analysis on that, it's just going to be a snapshot. So they wanted something that would be real time, so they could be constantly making decisions. They wanted to have data-driven alerts. So for example, for anti-money laundering purposes, it's really powerful when we can identify any behavior that can be classified as suspicious. And whenever that happens, we need to act on that as soon as possible. Machine learning and AI, who doesn't want that? And they wanted that system where they would access data to be controlled. So different people would have access to different pieces of data. For example, you have the finance team that they would want to access data related to salary, and you don't want everyone to have access to that. Or you have the people experience team that they're gonna have data on people who are having personal problems at home or stuff like that, and you don't want everyone to have access to that. And that's, so, and those are the few limitations we had. We only had a read-only replica. We had Google Analytics, and we had the Tableau server. And this is kind of how Tableau helped us to address all of them. So having all data centralized, we leverage Tableau data sources in the server. So you have a few data sources in there. So we're gonna have one for investors data, that every time we generate a report, we use this data source. So the data is consistent every time we're talking about the investor portfolio. It's a single definition and it's in there. And then real time, we also have Tableau connecting, like those data sources, they might be a live connection to the database. So in case managers, they need something like the last minute, they just use those reports. We haven't explored data-driven alerts yet, but I know that is one of the Tableau capabilities as well. Machine learning and AI, the problem there was mostly having that really heavy data handling, like, you know, all those calculations. And if you wanted something, for example, real time, it would be a little bit more complicated. But then we make use of data extracts, pretty much acting if you had a materialized view in a database, which is quite handy. So you have those extracts running once a day or something like that. And you don't need, when you access the report, you don't need to wait for ages. And control level of access for different people, we just have the individual licenses. Right now, everyone using Tableau has a viewer license. We are, I think that's the next slide, but well, I didn't put it in there, but we are considering to try to leverage a little bit more self-service, so have people actually using those data sources and potentially creating their own reports, but we're not quite there. And a few other things in terms of where we're looking forward in the, for the future. As I described at PeakPOC, we had this capability of triggering any events we wanted with the purpose of using that for analysis. At PeakPOC, every data we work with is pretty much being collected for functional reasons. So the data we use is the data that we collect because we need to make the app work. So we're looking into how we can actually have events being tracked for analytics reasons, and having a data lake and a data warehouse. So again, like at PeakPOC, that we had an S3 environment where you could just put data, any type of data in there without worrying about the format. So we're on the process of getting a data lake as well, and having a data warehouse where that will be the main data source for any Tableau report that we create. So just pretty much a place where you have this data a little bit more digested. If you want to do machine learning, we can just persist all that information in this data warehouse. And then we'll have Tableau on the top of that, just consuming all that information. That's me. Hope it was not too boring. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So I would need your help.
Just a second, sure. Alex. I'm trying to manage you. So say it again. Okay, I'll just unplug my headset so everyone in the room can hear the question. Go for it, Alex.
Sweet, cool. So thank you. I'll probably need your help in case there are any questions in Wellington, and maybe you can relay them. In the meantime, first off, I thought it was pretty interesting how you sort of compared the usage at PeakPOC and then how it was at Sharesies. The first question that I had when you started talking about Sharesies was that, well, why does my portfolio not perform as good as I thought it would, and what can I do, and can you help me?
I definitely cannot help you.
The other, like, slightly that was sort of the answer that I feared would come. The second, a little bit more serious question is, why is the logo of Sharesies a pineapple?
Okay, interesting fact. I don't know if anyone noticed, but I do have a pineapple tattoo, which is just a coincidence, but it's a funny one. I think the idea behind the pineapple was that back in the days, the pineapple was a sign of wealth. And nowadays, you can just find a pineapple at the supermarket. And it's kind of the same thing that Shares is trying to achieve, as making something that before was seen as something for the elite or something only for the rich people, and make that something that is just a normal part of our lives. So yeah, that's the reason why they choose the pineapple as a logo.
Cool. Well, that's more thought behind it than I thought. So we have one question from Udai, who asks, considering the recent attacks on NZX on the website, how secure is the data at Sharesies?
Considering what? I'm sorry.
The cyber attacks on the New Zealand stock market.
Yeah,
like a couple of weeks ago.
I can't speak about the infrastructure, like how things work and how we make sure data is secure. But I do know that we work with NZX to help them fix whatever happened with their database. What I can say is that we came from like we are fintech, so we are made on the top of really strong technology. And the company started, my image got super bad. The company started like in 2016, 17. So it's built on the top of very strong and very recent technology. Again, I cannot speak for the infrastructure team on what they're doing, how they're making sure our data is safe and secure. but I do know that there's a lot of effort and a lot of thought that we put into that.
Cool. Just sort of my thoughts on that probably as well is like, because you're just sort of the mediator there. I mean, obviously you handle people's personal information and money and that sort of thing, so it is a serious matter. But from how I see that, the attacks on the stock market are probably sort of a larger sort of scope than attacking sort of Sharesies that manages lots of smaller investors, I guess.
Yeah. So it's a different kind of. So you have privacy issues, which is one thing, and then you have making sure the data we hold is secure. So I see that as two different challenges. Of course, if someone get access to the database, you're gonna breach privacy as well. But what we as a data team we control is how people access data and what they do with it. So for example, there are situations that we do need to share, let's say a CSV with someone else within the company that will contain personal data. So one of the things that we do is, one, for example, people's password, we don't have access, like it's not accessible to the database. So it's just it's encrypted. So and we don't have access to that that code. And we avoid, for example, using people's name or email. We have an ID that if you just have the ID, you won't know unless you log into the system and you search for that ID to identify a person. And we also instruct everyone to, whenever they're dealing with data like this, to get the data, do whatever you have to do, and delete it straight away, because we don't want those files just hanging on people's computer. But yeah, again, it's one thing is making sure internally we are handling the data well. And the other thing, which is more an infrastructure focus, is to make sure that people cannot access our database. Did you say something, Alex? I think you're on mute.
No, Alex is not mute, but I think something happened to his microphone. Ooh. Alex, while you get sorted, I can ask the last question that we have on the Q&A. Is that all right? Cool. Right, so I'll do it. Yeah, so we have one last question there for you, Diego. It's I'm keen to hear more about using Tableau as data sources, I think. So the person is asking about materialized views to underpin AI. So he's not sure if he misheard it, but yeah, he's interested in knowing more about how you guys use that.
Cool. So the way we do it, so whenever you're working, let's say you're working with the Tableau desktop in your own machine, and then you access the data, and you can either have a live connection to, let's pretend we're talking about a database. So it's a Postgres database. You can have a live connection. When you publish that to a Tableau server, that report might be connected to this database live. So whenever you open the report, that's going to trigger a SQL query, and that's going to generate visualization. Or it might be an extract, which is just like something that is executed once a day, let's say, and that data will live within the Tableau server. And then whenever you open the report, it's just going to point to that thing that is living within the Tableau server. What the data source is, it's pretty much a way to make this connection available to anyone who is using, so you pretty much, you save that extract into the server, and you can use that for creating other reports. So let's say I'm connecting to the Postgres database, and I'm doing a bunch of, like, I created a bunch of calculations, and then I have, I don't know, like usually we have to adjust time zone when we're connecting to the database. And yeah, you have all those calculations, you rename some of the fields. And then what you can do, you can save that in the Tableau server, and that's called a data source. And then you can use that later on to create more reports. So you don't have to redo the whole data manipulation thing, data cleansing, or yeah, filters and all of that. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Let's see if there's any further follow-ups. No, but I think that that was more or less what was being asked, like how you would use Tableau as a data source, really. Which is, yeah, I think it's exactly on point. I have another one that came through the chat. So somebody's asking if you use Tableau for any end user facing products like newsletters or dashboards on the website or anything of the like, or is it just internally?
It's just internal. Yeah, everything that is facing investors, it's a separated thing. So all the reports we create, we might have data that might have a Tableau report that we internally go check, copy data from, and send an email using that. But whatever investors are seeing is not from Tableau directly.
Cool. Yeah, I think that wraps it up. Unless somebody has one last minute question, which I don't think they do.
So I'll just.
Is there any questions? Yeah. Is there any questions down there in the room in Wellington? Sorry. Yeah.
What's your most popular visualization in the dashboard?
So there's this report which it's composed by a bunch of different kind of KPIs, but on the top right you have how much money we're holding, and then on the top left I think you have how many investors we have, how many accounts, shares accounts.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay,
can you
cool.
hear us?
Yeah. So yeah, you have how much money we're holding, or how many shares, how much those shares are worth, and then you have how many accounts, and then a split between like how many of those accounts logged in recently, how many of those accounts are paying subscription, and a little bit of that. So yeah, how much money, how many investors, and some other information at the bottom. But those are kind of the main KPIs that people always are interested at. So how much we hold and how many accounts we have. So those are the kind of the KPIs that get people excited. Cool.
Can you guys hear me now?
Sweet. Yes.
Very good. I switched to my headset. I'm not sure what suddenly happened. Thanks, Tabata, for taking over. I did have one more question, and I wanted to preface that with, like, from my experience, I think a lot of companies go through the same troubles that you guys did. Basically, you have your data somewhere, but you have trouble accessing it and modeling it, and like somebody like gatekeeps it. So because you already said that you sort of need a data, or you are looking into creating a data lake and or a data warehouse, I was wondering sort of what limitations with Tableau server and Tableau extracts you ran into that makes you think that you need a data lake and or a data warehouse.
Pretty much there are situations where you want to manipulate data. For example, we are currently developing this diversity score, which calculates how diverse your portfolio is. And that includes a lot of heavy lifting using matrix multiplications, and that's when things get a little bit tricky. And also taking snapshots of the database. So for example, we might have information about our investors right now that if we go in the production database, we'll have a snapshot of it. Let's say portfolio value, for example. So it's easy to access how much this investor has in the account. But if you want to know how much this investor had in the account 20 years ago, you can still do it, but it's very complicated, and it will be much easier if you had that stored somewhere. And it's just, if you want to do it for every single investor, it becomes just unfeasible. It's impossible because it's too much a computational power that you need.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. I think that were all the questions.
Yeah, there's one more question here.
My question was, I relay it if you need to, just about you use Tableau Server in both places. I was just wondering why you chose Tableau Server over Tableau Online in terms of the infrastructure decision.
Did you hear the question?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I think that there was more of an infrastructure decision. So it was not my suggestion or anything. At Sharesies, they do have to comply with some obligations. So they need to have that in-house. But I think for PigPock, it was more about they already had some type of infrastructure that they could leverage, I think. Yeah, I think it was more about having the ownership of that, like having the flexibility to control things the way they wanted. Yeah. Any other questions here? I think we're good here.
Great. Yeah, then thanks for that. I think that was quite interesting, and I hope everybody got something out of it. Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for sort of creating the presentation and taking the time to talk.
Yeah, thanks everyone for having me. I'm passionate about basketball and data. Those are my two passions. So I'm super happy to grab any questions you might have. There's my email over there. Feel free to contact me directly, but I'm more than happy to talk about data anytime.
Sweet, thank you. So then last up, we have myself. And I sort of renamed my presentation or my session Tableau News, and that's largely because I'll provide a bit of a summary of all the things that happened in the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Also, we will do our giveaway, which are 3 books, so it's definitely worth to stay on a little bit longer. So let me start sharing my screen. Okay, and there we go. Sweet. I hope everybody can see my screen and you see the presentation.
Yep, your screen is up and we can hear you fine. Yeah.
Cool. And let me see if I can make it full screen. There we go. Very good. So first up, we have Tableau conference-ish this year. I mean, as everybody know, and we are all in the same situation, basically, there were no in-person events since, I don't know, probably February or so. So obviously Tableau conference didn't happen as an in-person event this year either. And how Tableau dealt with it was rebranding as TC-ish, because it was similar to a Tableau conference, but not exactly the same. I don't know if any of you dialed into some of the sessions or some of the keynotes and that sort of thing. I personally, I found it quite difficult to sort of fit it in with everything else I was doing during the day. So they actually had different tracks for the US, Europe, and APAC. So it was basically, you were always able to watch something and it was in the right time zone, so that wasn't a problem. But obviously it's much easier to go to a session in person and not be distracted than trying to watch it from home or from the office. or work around sort of meetings or other things you have on. Nevertheless, I thought they did actually a really good job. Now, if you haven't been to a Tableau conference, I was told that it's very different to any other tech conference. Now, I'm saying that I was told because I haven't been to any other conferences. I've been to 2 Tableau conferences in person. And it's really, like, for me personally, the stuff that you get out of it is what happens between the sessions, the amount of people you run into, the discussions you have over beer, over lunch, or that sort of thing. And I think that was the big thing that many people in the community were afraid of would be missing. So basically, the sessions were very similar to the in-person sessions. So you had customer speakers, you had Tableau speakers explaining features or explaining how they are using Tableau in their organization. If you do have any sort of questions about features or would like to see, or if you plan to implement something one way or the other, so for example, Tom was talking about that he would like to see how other people sort of did the permission management and that sort of thing. I guarantee you there will be a session about that at this year's conference. So just check out the list of talks on the link on the screen. You don't have to type it now. I'll put it in a LinkedIn post and in a summary email afterwards anyway to send it around. But that's definitely worth it. The one thing I was like positively surprised by was how Tableau and the community try to compensate for the lack of sort of networking and in between session banter that usually goes on. So Tableau first created or used brain dates, which they did before in person already, where you basically anybody can set up a session with a certain theme, and then up to 5 people can join, and then you can discuss it. So I joined, I think, 2 or 3 different ones with people from all over the world, and we discussed sort of how to increase Tableau adoption and how to train people in organizations more efficiently. There were happy hours organized by different people, basically across US, Europe, and APAC again. Basically at the end of the day, we just posted a Zoom link and sort of talked about what we watched, what we liked, what we didn't like, which was really nice to actually get in touch and talk to people that you maybe have seen before. Maybe you see all these Zen masters and ambassador names online, and you get actually the chance to talk to them. And there was even sort of an after party, basically, where somebody in the US actually hired a DJ, and we had a Zoom session with, I don't know, 100, 150 people dialed in, including the Adam Silipsky, the CEO of Tableau, who sort of dialed in for half an hour, So that was really cool. Again, I recommend just browsing through the videos, see if you find something interesting. I know it from personal experience. It's always hard to like just say, oh yeah, there are 5, 10 videos that I want to watch, and then finding the time to do it. But again, just have a look. If you can manage it, it's definitely worth it, and you'll take something away from it. In more recent news, you probably will have heard about the Slack acquisition of Salesforce and an extension to Tableau with that, where Salesforce bought Slack for $27.7 billion US. Now, when I first heard that, I found that number a bit excessive, but I'm not Benny of. I don't make the decision for Salesforce. I think for Salesforce, it's an interesting move to sort of bring the whole customer base closer together. In terms of from a Tableau perspective, I'm not quite sure how much of an impact that will have. I think sort of what we probably will see is stuff like Ask Data straight up in Slack, where you can open your Slack window, ask, I don't know, how did my profit develop over the last 10 years? And then you get a nice chart directly in Slack. I would assume also that alerting through Slack will become more native. So basically, if you have a threshold that is broken or something, then you get a notification in Slack. So that might be something that Diego might be looking forward to. But I would assume that takes another, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 years. So I would say watch this space and see what's happening. Next up, Tableau 2020.4 is due to be released any time now, I think. So I would expect it to be released either this week or next week, before Christmas anyway. They, as usual, they have a bunch of features that they release. I think the 2 or 3 most important ones, or the biggest one that I think will have the most impact on users, is first the multiple layers on a map. So if you worked with Tableau and maps before, you will know that basically you were limited to 2 layers. So you could do, for example, a choreograph map where you have the countries, for example, colored in one color, and then you have bubbles for cities, for example, to display profit or whatever it is you want to display. Now at the conference, they announced multiple layers. So now you can layer as many layers as you want on a map to create something like this. And you can see on the right, charging points for electric cars, supermarkets, road noise, floodplains, tree canopies, and house prices all overlaid on top of each other. Now I do challenge how much insight you get out of a map like that. And if you actually open it on Tableau Public, you can hover over pretty much anything, and it will give you some tooltip with information, but it's quite slow. So as always, messages just because you can doesn't mean you should. But I think it'll offer a lot more possibilities, and I already have seen people who played around with the beta and basically put like 6 completely different charts, like line charts, bar charts, and other charts on one worksheet, and it was just previously impossible. I also appreciate that probably for many of you, 2020.4 will still be a while away. So from my experience, usually organizations lag behind at least 2 versions. And I am aware that there are probably people out there that are still on 2018 or something, in the worst case, maybe even older than that. The 2 other big ones are prep improvements. And I'm not sure how many people here use prep, but the 2 things that I found most interesting was prep in browser. So you don't need the desktop client anymore. You can do most of it, if not anything, in the browser. Which sort of fits with the whole Salesforce acquisition. Salesforce does everything in the cloud anyway. So that sort of, it'll move more and more in there. And if you look at Tableau Server, you'll, over the last sort of 2 years of releases, gradually more and more functions were added to the Tableau Server edit. So that I would say I don't know, I would assume that Tableau moves away from a desktop client entirely, probably within 2 years. And then the last thing there as well for prep was the spatial support. So while previously you needed something like Alteryx or ArcGIS or something like that to actually calculate spatial things. So for example, distance from your office to your customer, or the radius at which customers live from your store, that sort of thing. Now you can actually do that in prep and do spatial calculations that previously you were only able to do in Tableau Desktop. You'll be able to do in Tableau Prep as well. Then the next, I cut off the link here. The next thing, if you joined the Auckland Tableau user group before, you probably have heard me talking about that in the last 2 years at one point or the other. The Tableau Fringe Festival is an event started by Emily Kund in the US, I think 5 years ago or so. And the idea was to give people who don't get speaker slots at Tableau Conference because they are not, they're not part of a big customer, or their talk is too niche or that sort of thing, to give them a platform to actually talk to a larger audience. And I'm involved with that for the last 3 years or so, and helped Emily organizing it and actually running the APEC events that we used to have. This year we do it slightly differently. So we have a 2-day event next Thursday and Friday US time, which means it's Friday and Saturday New Zealand time. It starts at 2:30 a.m. So obviously I don't expect anybody to dial in at that time. But the speakers are lined up until basically 2 p.m. New Zealand time. So for the second half, you'll definitely get something out of it. I'll be hosting in the morning, sort of between 7 and 9, I think. Again, similar to the talks are usually on the level of Tableau conference talks. So you'll have very experienced people talking about how they use Tableau, about sort of hacks, how to use new functionality, that sort of thing. It's definitely worth looking at the schedule, having a look at the titles and see what you're interested in. All of that will as well be recorded and be published on YouTube within probably a couple of weeks, considering there are 35 talks, I think. But yeah, have a look. I'll put the link in the chat afterwards and send it out via email anyway. Actually, let me move that over a bit. There we go. So one thing I learned the hard way with the bit.ly links, make sure that you use lowercase and uppercase correctly. So that's lowercase TFF. If you do uppercase, you might end up on some dodgy website. Next up, now I thought I just put it out there because those roles are open for a while. Salesforce is actually hiring Tableau people in Wellington and Auckland. So if you are a salesperson or a solution engineer, I'm definitely not encouraging leaving your current employer, but maybe you know somebody who knows somebody who is interested in either of those roles. From what I hear, it's a pretty good place to work at, lots of perks and benefits. So yeah, have a look at the Salesforce careers and maybe have a look. If you are interested, feel free to get in touch. I'll put you in touch with some of the people at Tableau or Salesforce, and you can talk about that.
Alex, Paul here.
Yep.
I'm sat with Steve from Tableau. He says the solution engineer job's gone.
There's a horrible echo, but okay, the solution engineer is gone. Okay. So if you're an account executive, you still have the chance. If you're a solution engineer, maybe not anymore. Well, maybe they should take the ad off the website. Sweet. With that, we come to our Christmas book giveaway. So the rules are, we have 3 books to give away. So we have Visual Analytics with Tableau, written by Alex Load, who actually gave that to me to give away. So we'll give it away today. Thanks for that. We have Observe, Collect, Draw by Georgia Lupa and Stephanie Puzarek. You might have heard about the Dear Data project, where 2 people send each other postcards for a year, once every week, with sort of data visualizations of sort. So this were those 2, and the book basically is an exercise book to do something similar. So it guides you through data collection exercises, and then sort of visualization exercises. And then lastly, we have How Charts Live from Alberto Cairo. What I will do, or what I have done already, was I put everybody's first name in a random name draw generator. The good thing is that we had every first name only once. So that means we don't have double ups, and also I don't run into privacy issues with giving away last names, so that sort of thing. I'll call out, or you'll see the name on the screen, and I would ask you to just write in the chat, because we want the winners to be on the call. If you're not on the call, I'll just redraw and we go to the next person. Yes, and once you claim the prize, I'll send it out. So you should receive it before Christmas, hoping that New Zealand Post does its part. Sweet. So with that, let me organize, let me get my chat window. What is my chat? Sweet. Okay, so I have all people who registered excluding people who were involved with the tag and excluding the employees of Tableau. So if you are part of either of the groups, I'm sorry for that. And then I click start. So we have Urlo. Let me see. If you are on the call, it's like just looking through the names, I don't think he or she is on the call. So with that, oh, by the way, the first book we give away is How Charles Fly. Okay, so it doesn't look like that person is on the call, so we remove he or she and we draw again. Excitement. So this time we have Sam. And I think she is also not on the call. Tough luck, I would say. So we go again.
There's a
suggestion
that the book should go to one of the presenters.
Sorry?
Suggestion that the book should go to a presenter.
Oh, we have books for the presenters as well. So we'll do that as well. And Ludo, who I know personally, who is probably sad that he's not on the call, is also not on the call. So I didn't expect that to happen, but we'll just keep going. At some point, somebody will be on the call. Vivian. Looks like Vivian. That becomes a bit boring. But we'll just keep going. Yes, Steve, it's fun. Sarah. Also not. There, I can also see that like around 13 people already dropped off anyway. So tough luck for those. Oh, Steve. I know that Steve is on the call. He just wrote. So congratulations, Steve.
Steve. Oh yeah, he said yes immediately.
Yeah. How Charles Lai will be on the way to you. I'll be in touch with people to get a mailing address or something. Sweet. Then the next one we give away is Visual Analytics by Alex Lord. And we have Liam, who also doesn't seem to be on the call. So, well, maybe we have another 7 ones who were not on the call. Ellison, also not. And by the way, the Alex there, it's not me. So I didn't intend to give myself. Udai. So we have one Udai.
I think Udai, yeah.
Online,
oh,
but
there it is.
He's the wrong Udai.
Oh, I think we have 2. No.
So Udai. So Udai is Udai S.
We have Udai
yes,
and Udai
sweet.
S.
Very good.
Oh.
Very good. Very good. So this one will be on the way to you. I'll send you an email to the email you registered with to figure out a shipping address. And then the last one will be Observe, Collect, Draw. And let's see how often we need to turn it now.
I think the further you go, the less you'll need, right?
Duncan. Wait, is Duncan?
Put that back in the mix. It's Duncan from Montage.
Ah, okay.
Again.
I intended to remove everybody involved, so let's do that now. Sorry for that confusion. Sophia, no, Suzanne. And I say, yes, I've seen her online. So Suzanne.
Oh, no.
But you're not involved with the user group, are you? Because well, yeah. I think I would say that's a winner.
Yeah.
So I'll give one away to Suzanne. So I'll be in touch with you for a shipping address as well. Whew. So that took some time, but eventually we gave all our books away, and I think we had we needed to nearly draw 15, 16 times or so. Well, thanks for everybody for staying on. I think I have 2 more things. Okay, sweet. So with that, one thing as a user group sort of leader, one thing is to acknowledge people in the community. So I wanted to acknowledge Jeff, who has been leading the Tableau as a Christchurch Tableau user group, who has been helping with the virtual user group, well, the last 2 events that we had, and is a super active community member, sort of sharing his Tableau knowledge. I met him recently in Christchurch, and he said that he doesn't have that book. So that's Storytelling with Data by Cole Nussbaum and Netflix. So as part of that, I'll hand over that book to Jeff, and that will be on the way to him. And lastly, now the actual end of the whole session. As always, talk to us if you want to share your Tableau journey similar to Tom and Diego. It doesn't have to be you don't have to speak for your whole company like both of them did. If you have a problem with Tableau, or you had a problem with Tableau and you overcame it, if you figured out how to use a certain feature, if you created a dashboard that you are able to share, or used a certain technique that you think might be interesting for other people as well, please get in touch. We are happy to have all of you speak. It doesn't need to be a 20-30 minute talk. It can be 10 minutes as well. It's just it helps everybody. And if you think it's obvious to you, it might not be obvious to others. If you can host in-person events, which we hope, well, Wellington did that already today. So thanks to the Electricity Authority who hosted them today in Wellington. We hope that we can do in-person events next year in Auckland as well, and we actually get enough people to come along, because that was sort of the biggest consideration why we did this event online. Get in touch with us as well, similar for Wellington and Christchurch. If you are part of a company and think you can host, get in touch with any of us, and we'll figure out sort of the requirements, the space we need, and work around your what you can provide. Pretty much anything, and I'm sure everybody else who leads the user group will agree, anything can help, even if you just offer a room and you can't provide food and drink. So that's sort of, I'm sure we can work around these sort of things. If you look for people to fill a Tableau role, or you look for a Tableau role, again, get in touch with us. Feel free to post in the LinkedIn groups. Get in touch with us personally. Sometimes we know about things that might come up, or we know people who look informally or might be looking in the near future. So that's always a good way to sort of get a referral of some sort for a new role that might not be as obvious or openly advertised yet. And with that, thank you to everybody who supported us. Thanks to Caroline, who does a lot of work behind the scenes to help us out organizing these sessions. Tableau provides the Zoom account to actually run them. Thanks, as I said, to the Electricity Authority who hosted Wellington. Thanks to Tom and Diego for speaking, because as I said, it's always a challenge to find speakers. And if we get speakers who are willing to share what they do as a company, it helps everybody. And like, there are a lot of people who actually gain from that. Oh yes, there will be one book each to on their way to Diego and Tom as well. We'll figure out which book that's gonna be, and hopefully that will be with you before Christmas as well. Apart from that, thanks for dialing in, everybody. Thanks, Paul, for organizing everybody in Wellington, and thanks everybody in Wellington for coming along. I hope everybody will have a great Christmas. Have a happy new year. I'll hope we see each other in person next year again. We probably will still run something online somehow. That's still sort of in the early planning stage, but we'll see how that goes along. And yeah, with that, thanks everybody. Get in touch if you can help us out with anything. And apart from that, have a great break and see all of you in 2021.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all. Thanks, Alex. Nice to have it.
Thanks, Diego. Thanks, Paul. So I will.